You notice it first as a pressure in the room, a slight thickening of the air, as if the world were holding its breath and waiting for you to name the frequency you will live by. The moment is ordinary, but the ordinary is cracking. What you have called reality is simply a persistent broadcast, and you are the tuner, the cone of attention, the field that confers shape. You think you are thinking, but you are also being thought by the field. Underneath the noise of your day, an instrument is warming your nervous system, your heart's electrical orchestra, your cortex with its predictive loops and priors. Every prediction you carry acts like a metronome telling matter how to show up around you, a covert rhythm that edits your choices, filters your perceptions, and calls it truth. This is where the hacking begins. You stop worshipping the picture on the screen and you reach for the dials in the projector booth, the parameters in your own biology that phase lock with the quantum field and command coherence. Your breath is one dial, your attention is another. In the unseen, measurement is creation. The observer effect is not poetry, but instruction. And every time you look, you specify a boundary condition that the world rushes to satisfy. When your thought, emotion, and body signature oscillate at different tempos, the field returns distortion, missed timings, scrambled signals, coincidences that almost land. When they enter coherence, phase-locked like three lasers aligning on the same point, probability density narrows, and experience precipitates like rain from a saturated cloud. This is not metaphor. This is engineering. You do not need a ritual robe to begin. You need a decision that is colder than doubt. Feel the baseline hum of your body, the way anxiety fizzes at high frequency, the way apathy drags like low fog, the way gratitude lifts the mid-range and brightens the room without changing the bulbs. Emotion is not decoration, it is carrier wave. Thought is modulation. Behavior is antenna geometry. When these three align, constructive interference amplifies your signal, and reality bends to accommodate the louder broadcast. When they fight, you jam yourself, and the world returns static that you mislabel as fate. So you test the architecture. You choose a target pattern, not a wish, but a state calm authority, precise generosity, lucid focus defined somatically rather than theatrically. You let the future version of you lend its frequency back into this moment, like a tuning fork, waking a piano string without touching it, and you breathe until the heart's beat to beat. Variability widens, the vagus nerve settles the storm, and cortical noise falls below the threshold where new priors can take root. In this quiet, attention becomes a needle, sensation becomes data, meaning is negotiated. You stop asking the mirror to move first. You move, and the mirror records. A subtle click occurs when the body believes you, when your limbic system stops shouting that you are lying and starts warming to the rhythm you are imposing. That click is the doorway. On the other side, time behaves differently, not because clocks change, but because prediction relaxes and new information enters the model you call me. This is the first law of frequency hacking. Coherence before conditions. You do not wait for evidence to tune, you tune to generate evidence. You are not here to plead with reality, you are here to specify it. You begin by listening for the leaks, those small betrayals of signal that seem harmless, until you realize they are the very interference patterns scattering your probability cloud. You name them without drama. Naming is measurement, and measurement collapses ambiguity into a modifiable parameter. Leak 1 is latency, the delay between the state you claim and the micro-behaviors your body performs. You speak resolve, and your pupils still micro-lurch in vigilance. You choose abundance, and your shoulder girdle caves a millimeter as if bracing. These are not moral failures. They are lagging priors, old predictive models, optimizing for yesterday's weather. Your biology isn't wrong. It is merely current to a timeline you have outgrown. You do not attack it, you update it. Leak 2 is incoherent pairing, a thought promising expansion riding on an emotional carrier wave coded for threat. Your cortex writes poetry about possibility, while your limbic system stamps every syllable with cortisol. The field hears the carrier wave first. It always does. You correct not by censoring thought, but by recoding the carrier breath ratios that lengthen exhale, postures that widen clavicles, Gazes that soften peripheral vision so that the amygdala stands down and the heart's rhythm drifts towards sinus coherence. You let physiology authorize philosophy. Leak 3 is semantic overload. Words you use as if they were states. Peace, power, trust. Yet in your nervous system they remain nouns, not rhythms. The field doesn't transact in nouns, it transacts in oscillations. You translate each term into a felt contour: temperature, pressure, direction, tempo, and you rehearse the contour until the word evaporates and only the waveform remains. The wave is what the world answers. Leak 4 is split intention. The subtle bargain where a fragment in you still gets payoff from the problem. The ache buys you belonging. The scarcity buys you moral advantage. The chaos buys you the right to avoid your real scale. You do not shame the fragment. You negotiate with it like an old ally who learned to keep you alive with blunt tools. You promise it a better job in the new signal architecture, guarding discernment rather than hoarding, amplifying humility rather than self-erasure, sharpening focus rather than policing joy. Parts relax when given purpose. You move to instruments. Because diagnostics require devices. You place 2 fingers lightly at your carotid and watch your inhale lengthen the interval, your exhale settle the beat. You teach your heart to entrain your brain instead of the other way around. You hold a steady gaze at a fixed point and then soften it to include the entire room. And you notice how tight focus sharpens intention while soft focus opens receptivity. You learn to modulate between the two like a camera pulling focus to tell the scene what matters now. You practice box breathing to square the system, then resonance breathing to round it. You feel the exact speed where your chest and belly stop arguing and begin to pass the wave smoothly like a relay. You audit language in the wild, not affirmations in a journal the way you order coffee, answer invitations, say yes, say no. Every casual phrase is a broadcast template. I'm slammed becomes a spell that instructs time to crush you. No rush teaches your future to arrive as fog. You replace I hope with I will stay available to and watch agency return to your hands without arrogance. You stop narrating the weather of your mind as identity, I'm anxious, and switch to process. I am running a vigilance protocol that no longer serves this context. The field adjusts when you stop confessing as a noun and start editing as a verb. You examine attention tax. Where you pay it determines which governments of reality you empower. Infinite scroll siphons amplitude from your broadcast. Outrage hijacks your modulation depth. Comparison injects phase noise that blurs your signal's edges. You do not moralize the platforms. You audit the cost. Anything that cannot survive a line item in your ledger of coherence is demoted to a slot that cannot steal your carrier wave. Then comes the most honest test, counterfactual rehearsal. You simulate, with precision, a day lived by the frequency you claim: wake time, nutritional choices, gait, tone, inbox triage, micro pauses before speaking, the exact sentence you will use to decline what dilutes you, the exact sensation at the base of your skull when you're telling the truth. If your simulation collapses under the weight of, but what about, you've discovered unresolved couplings, people, environments, or identities anchored to your prior broadcast. You do not dramatize the tension, you map it, because hacking is not rebellion, it is refactoring. You are rewriting the interface between prediction and perception. You commit to one small, unambiguous behavioral proof. Within 24 hours a call made, a subscription cancelled, a room rearranged. So the first thing your eyes meet in the morning is congruent with the life you are inviting. You do it without flourish. You let the body taste the consequence of alignment so that chemistry can ally with philosophy. The leaks won't vanish tonight. But tonight, you become the architect who can find them in the dark. You do not guess your way into alignment. You procedure your way there. Elegance arrives when ritual becomes engineering. Begin with calibration. You sit upright with a spine like an antenna mast, crown subtly lengthened, jaw unhooked, sternum neither proud nor collapsed, feet grounded, so the body trusts gravity enough to free attention for the finer work. You place your right palm over your heart center and your left over your lower abdomen to bridge intention and physiology. You soften your gaze until you perceive the room as one field rather than a collection of objects. Edges blur, threat cues mute, peripheral vision widens. The amygdala exhales when the world is allowed to be whole. 5 minutes of resonance breathing. In through the nose, out longer than you entered. You ride a slow wave that feels like it belongs to the ocean, not your ego. Inhale rises for about 5 counts. Exhale rides down for about 7. You are not counting to win. You are courting rhythm. With each exhale, you signal the vagus nerve to bathe the heart, and the heart answers by smoothing its intervals. Heart rhythm becomes a metronome the brain can trust. As HRV widens, cortical noise slackens, and predictive models loosen their grip enough to hear new priors knocking. Now you encode. Frequency hacking demands a carrier wave seeded with a clean image. Not a picture in your mind of cars and outcomes, an image of you as a pattern. You choose one word that is not a noun but a motion. Steady, precise, generous. Then you translate it into a somatic signature temperature, cool or warm, direction, upward, outward, or deepening, texture, silk, crystal, or wind, tempo, largo, andante, or allegro. You let the word dissolve and keep only the waveform, and you bathe your heart in that waveform until your chest seems to glow with it. If doubt intrudes, you do not argue. You lengthen the exhale. You return to rhythm. Rhythm edits narrative without debate. The mind will ask for proofs. You provide one. Attentional choreography. You select a single object in the room, a cup, a hinge of light on the wall, and hold it in crisp focus for 15 seconds, feeling the micro-tremor of ocular muscles settle as the prefrontal cortex claims priority. Then you soften into panoramic awareness for 15 seconds, allowing the whole room to arrive without preference. Back to focus, back to panorama. This toggling trains the thalamus, the gatekeeper, to take orders from you rather than from ancient alarms. It is also a metaphor. Intention speaks in focus, receptivity answers in panorama. Both are sacred. Alignment requires alternating current. Next, you broadcast. This is where language becomes voltage. You speak quietly into the room in present tense verbs that your body can enact now, not promises that demand a future to rescue you. I move with clean edges. I answer slowly and exactly. I am available to elegant solutions. The grammar matters because your nervous system passes commands like a literalist. You keep each line short enough to belong to a breath. You let meaning ride on tone more than content, so the limbic system, sovereign of the carrier wave, feels safe enough to cooperate. Then, a micro-audit of identity binding. You name one payoff. The old frequency still offers, and you assign it a better function. If chaos once gave you belonging, you assign belonging to contribution. If scarcity once gave you virtue, you assign virtue to precision. You do not abandon parts, you repurpose them. Fragmentation is expensive. Integration is efficient. The field rewards efficient broadcasters with amplitude. You move into rehearsal. This is the cold portion. You rehearse one conversation you will have today at the frequency you encoded. You hear the first sentence you will speak. You feel the exact press between your shoulder blades when posture stays true. You watch yourself pause for one beat longer than you used to before answering, so the prefrontal cortex can edit reflex into response. You program your future into your nervous system as if you were installing a driver. Then the proof. Frequency without behavior is ornament. You choose one act congruent with the broadcast, a boundary, an email, a 30-minute block of deep work protected by airplane mode, a glass of water placed where you will finish it, and you complete it before doubt drafts essays about why you should wait. The act is not dramatic, it is precise. The body only believes what the body does. Finally, you seal. Hand returns to heart. Exhale lengthens. Chin bows a degree. You whisper a single line that reminds you, who assigns meaning here? I am the tuner, not the weather. Or, coherence precedes conditions. You allow stillness to follow, as if silence itself were listening. In that quiet, you feel the click again, the subtle shift when the organism agrees. Agreement is the door through which probability walks. You stand differently than you Saturday. The room is the same, and it is not. Because the signal you carry has edges now, and edges change how the world grips you. You do not need the world to applaud. You need the next breath to match the last. The protocol is not a performance, it is scaffolding. Hold to it until you don't need it, and when stress returns, as stress will return to it before story. The field is not sentimental, only faithful. It answers the loudest, cleanest broadcast. Today, you know how to make one. You don't chase outcomes, you engineer interference. Because the world before you is not a wall to push. It is a wave to meet at the right angle. Resonance is not mystical favoritism, it is math wearing a cloak. Every state you embody carries a frequency and, more crucially, a phase relation, the when of the wave. The angular position that decides whether two signals add or cancel. You have felt it when a conversation lands in unison and energy swells, and you have felt it when you and the moment are half a beat off and everything thins. Your life has not been defined by amplitude alone, but by phase alignment, by the precision of your when. So you train for phase. Note harder, cleaner. Begin with the laboratory of the ordinary, your calendar. Most people fill it with what? Almost none schedule when they are most phase available. Your cognitive signal carries a circadian curve, an ultradian rhythm, windows where prefrontal gain is high and limbic noise is low. You already know the texture. Hours when language becomes blade clean and hours when tying a shoe feels like algebra. You stop moralizing the troughs, you architect around them. Deep work enters the wave crest. Administrative fragments fall into the trough. Social presence rides the second wind. You move tasks into resonance rather than dragging resonance into tasks. That single rearrangement often doubles the signal-to-noise ratio of a day. Then, you examine conversational phase. You have been taught to win by volume, coherence wins by timing. You let silence arrive half a beat longer than comfort, and watch truth congeal in the space your old reflex would have filled with noise. You learn to enter a room without announcing your frequency. You allow the field to announce its baseline first, then introduce a slight lead with your steadier rhythm, inviting entrainment instead of domination. People feel this as relief. They follow the cleaner metronome without needing to be convinced. Next, behavioral standing waves. Habits are not merely repeated acts. They are reinforced nodes where waves meet themselves across days, building amplitude. If you miss one repetition, you do not drown in drama. You protect phase continuity by compressing the next cycle rather than making up in bulk. You understand why streaks work. They preserve phase memory in the organism. You no longer let a single miss invert identity. You re-enter the wave before story can recruit shame. Phase discipline is gentleness expressed as rigor. You bring in physics to refine psychology. Constructive interference requires phase congruence and sufficient coherence length, the distance over which your wave remains organized. Sleep preserves coherence length. Light, first thing anchors circadian oscillators. Protein early prevents sugar turbulence from splintering your carrier. Hydration keeps the ionic orchestra electrically honest. None of this is glamorous. All of it is signal hygiene. You are done outsourcing spiritual alignment to moods while starving the instrument that must broadcast it. Now you confront decoherence, the great dissolver. Stress, speed, and social mimicry are its three agents. Stress is not the enemy. Unmetabolized stress is. You move it physically before you philosophize it. Walk, shake, lengthen, exhale. Cold water on the face to wake the mammalian dive reflex. 5 heavy exhales through pursed lips to dump CO2. You never negotiate with a flooded amygdala using words. You change blood gases and posture, then you speak. Speed is not productivity, it is phase smear. You trim 15% from your pace and discover that accuracy rises while fatigue falls. The field answers crisp edges, not frantic scribbles. Mimicry is the silent thief. You become the average of the rooms you haunt. You choose fewer, cleaner rooms and accept the loneliness that often precedes a higher entrainment set point. That loneliness is not a verdict, it is a detox. You map gain and noise. Gain is how much a small input becomes a large output. Noise is what blurs the message. Attention training increases gain. Poor boundaries inflate noise. You adopt a simple rule. Any commitment that requires you to jam your signal to be tolerated is too expensive. You no longer worship opportunity. You worship impedance, matching the fit between your broadcast and the medium it must travel. Projects, partners, platforms, you match or you decline. Elegance is a strategy, not a perfume. Time itself becomes pliable under phase competence. You stack tasks with compatible state demands, writing near strategy, logistics near errands, and refuse cocktails of conflicting states. You stop punishing your brain by demanding creative divergence immediately after social conflict. You insert a downshift protocol, walk, water, window, until your phase settles. You stop asking, how long will this take, and begin asking, when am I to this? Because duration shrinks when phase fits. Then, entanglement, not a sci-fi badge, a humble recognition that commitments share a state. When you align one domain, another begins to precess, slowly conceding to the new rhythm. Health follows clarity, money follows precision, relationships follow self-respect. You resist the urge to drag lagging domains by force. You hold phase steady in the lead variable and let coherence propagate like a wave through a string of coupled pendulums. It looks like patience. It is physics. Finally, you formalize a rule set you can write on one card. 1. Coherence before conditions. 2. Phase before force. 3. Gain up, noise down. 4. Rhythm edits narrative. 5. Behavior yields broadcast. You tuck the card where your eyes will meet it without ceremony. You do not wait for thunderclaps. You accumulate micro-aligned cycles until reality stops arguing. At first, the world seems confused, as if listening for a station it barely remembers. Then, one morning, you catch it. The room feels pre-tuned when you enter. Conversations meet you already half a beat forward. Coincidences become schedules, and what you called luck begins to look like an obedient wave. You were taught to change your life by adding more input, new books, louder mantras, heavier schedules. But the organism you inhabit is not starving for stimuli. It is starved for a new prior, a deeper assumption about what is likely here. Prediction is the emperor. Perception is its obedient press secretary. Your brain does not primarily see the world. It predicts the world, then edits prediction with a thin film of sensory correction. The loop is elegant. Model, compare, error, update. When you live inside an old model, every sensation is forced to serve yesterday's prophecy. The loop protects its own story even as it bleeds you with small inaccuracies. Frequency hacking becomes ruthless here. You don't shout over outdated priors, you make them obsolete. Begin with the honesty of baselines. You write a list of assumptions that feel like facts, and you treat them as code, not commandments. Effort equals strain. Clarity costs love. Money threatens virtue. Stillness invites danger. These are not beliefs. They are compression algorithms that made chaos survivable. You honor them for their service, and then you present them with newer data they cannot ignore. Data is not a meme. It is a felt proof. You design small confrontations with your priors. If your system predicts that saying no will cost belonging, you craft a no that preserves connection. Tone warm. Sentence precise, alternative offered. You observe the aftermath like a scientist, tallying what actually happened instead of what the alarm rehearsed. If your system predicts that ease equals laziness, you deliver one task at 85% effort with surgical timing and watch outcomes improve. Prediction registers surprise. Surprise is the nutrient priors eat to grow new branches. You feed them deliberately. Now you address the mathematics of risk. Old priors are conservative. They minimize imaginary losses by creating real ones. You change the cost function. You decide that false negatives missing genuine opportunities are now more expensive than false positives, exploring a few extras. You embody this in behavior. Reply to the email that would have intimidated your prior. Ship the draft at clear, not perfect. Ask for the meeting while your pulse is still slow. The organism learns by consequences, not by slogans. When low-risk bets pay, the loop relaxes. Relaxed loops stop hallucinating threats. To accelerate the update, you manipulate prediction error consciously. You create controlled mismatches between expectation and experience. Walk a new route. Use your non-dominant hand for simple tasks. Work in silence if you bathe in sound. Add gentle sound if you worship silence. Micro-novelty keeps the predictive machinery honest, preventing it from colonizing reality with old maps. But you never use novelty as chaos cosplay. You keep novelty inside a container. Fixed start, fixed end, clear intention. The loop likes play when play has edges. Then you train the precision weight, how much authority your brain gives to incoming data versus prior models. Under anxiety, the loop overtrusts priors and undertrusts the senses. Everything looks like a memory. You flip the ratio. You ground into the present with 3 concrete anchors. What your heels feel like in your shoes, the exact smell of the room, the temperature along your cheekbones. You name them softly. Precision flows back to the senses. The present regains negotiating power. Language becomes a scalpel. You stop predicting with your speech. I always, I never, people are, I am just someone who. These phrases are not self-expression, they are broadcast contracts that force the loop to deliver more of the same. You replace them with temporally humble clauses. Until now, I often, today, I am practicing. In this context, you are not performing optimism. You are editing the timestamp, so the model allows fresh data to enter without declaring treason. You engineer a deliberate anomaly, the proof of new prior. Choose one domain. Health, money, love, craft, health. Move your body for 12 minutes with breath-led cadence and stop while you still want more, teaching the loop that discipline can end with pleasure rather than pain. Money, send an invoice 7% higher than habit with a line item that explains value, teaching the loop that worth can be named without penalty. Love, state a need in 1 sentence, then breathe, teaching the loop that needs do not detonate belonging. Craft, publish something small on a schedule, teaching the loop that visibility and safety can coexist. You do this within 48 hours. The organism logs proof and priors budge. You adopt a nightly ritual called model release. 3 lines only. 1. What my model predicted today. 2. What reality actually delivered. 3. The microscopic update I accept. You do not inflate. You do not catastrophize. You shape the loop with consistent, digestible increments. Massive rebrands fail because the loop treats them as threat. Micro updates pass under the radar and install quietly while you sleep. Finally, you appoint a governor over the loop, the witnessing stance that refuses to confuse you with your predictions. Hand to heart, 1 slow exhale, a single sentence that ends the coup. I am the field learning itself. Priors bow to that kind of sentence. The loop keeps looping. It must. It's beautiful, but now it loops around a different Sunday. And when dawn arrives, you notice it. The air doesn't thicken before you speak. It listens. The room no longer argues with your presence. It harmonizes. Coincidences no longer feel like strangers. They call you by your new name. You didn't beg reality to change. You changed the prophecy that reality was forced to satisfy. You are not a lone transmitter. You are a node in a lattice, and lattices decide which states stabilize. Change the node, and the lattice pushes back. Change the lattice and the node relaxes into its new set point without war. Fieldcraft begins with a blunt admission. Environments are not neutral. Places and people are boundary conditions, and boundary conditions choose which solutions the equation can solve for. You stop treating your room, your desk, your calendar, your feed, and your relationships as scenery, and you start treating them as coupling constants parameters that turn private coherence into public reality. The physics name is entanglement. The psychological effect is contagion. The mystical language is morphic resonance. The principle is identical. What you connect to, you become. So you audit contact points. Every contact either sharpens the carrier or smears it. Open your phone and scroll as a scientist, not a supplicant. Each account gets a verdict: amplitude up, amplitude down, or amplitude flat. If it downshifts your nervous system into vigilance, if it stirs comparison, if it manipulates the limbic system with manufactured urgency, it is an impedance mismatch for the frequency you are engineering. You unfollow without ceremony. You are not declaring moral judgment. You are obeying signal hygiene. Your physical space becomes a laboratory. The first glance each morning is not trivial. It is a setting of priors. You place one artifact in direct line with your waking gaze that carries the waveform you are broadcasting. A card with your rule set, a single object with clean geometry, a photograph of you postured in the state you intend to normalize. Clutter is not ugliness, it is noise. You remove any object that makes your body's edges blur, and you keep what makes your edges articulate. Minimalism is not a religion here, it is a strategy for raising coherence length. Then you address surface friction. High friction virtuous fail, low friction virtuous persist. Water on the desk, shoes by the door, headphones coiled where your hand expects them, templates for emails that guard your boundaries with warm precision, a timer within thumb reach during deep work blocks. You lower the energy threshold required to act like the person you already broadcast, so behavior seals broadcast without drama. You stop asking willpower to do procurement's job. Relationships are not ornaments on the tree of self. They are the root network. You map your crew into 3 rings. Inner ring, 2 or 3 humans whose baseline signal is steadier than your old chaos, who refuse to collude with your self-erasure, who slow you down when speed becomes camouflage. Middle ring, collaborators and peers with compatible phase windows. Outer ring, acquaintances and audience. You do not grant inner ring privileges to outer ring signals. Access is not affection, it is physics. You write boundary sentences in advance because flooded nervous systems do not write well. Keep them short, keep them kind, keep them repeatable. Thank you for thinking of me. I'm not available for that. I'm available for X, not Y. I'll need 24 hours before I commit. I prefer to keep this channel for logistics. Here's how to reach me for depth. You rehearse them at your broadcast frequency until they feel like muscle memory. Boundaries are not walls. They are waveguides, structures that prevent energy from diffusing into noise. You cultivate rooms that entrain upward. A single hour inside a higher coherence field rewires expectation more efficiently than a week of private pep talks. You look for spaces where silence is not weaponized, where precision is ordinary, where generosity does not preen, where people land their sentences like they mean to be accountable for their effects. When you find such rooms, you contribute signal before you extract it. The field will keep you if you feed it. Money is a carrier wave too. Avoid transactions that target your amygdala rather than your craft. You stop buying urgency masked as opportunity. You invest in infrastructure that extends coherence, length, sleep, light, skill, a chair that keeps your spine honest, a system that captures ideas at the speed you generate them. Spending becomes an engineering decision, not therapy. Rituals anchor state across days. Choose one morning cue, one midday reset, one evening seal. Morning, breath-led coherence, and one clean sentence spoken into the room. Midday, 3-minute walk outside, peripheral vision softening, exhale lengthened, posture recalibrated. Evening, model release and technology, exile from the final hour. Do them when you don't need them so they're available when you do. Rhythm edits narrative. Ritual protects rhythm. Now you test the lattice. You introduce a micro-experiment called field confirmation. Invite one person from your inner ring into your environment for an hour of parallel presence, no performance, each working on something real. After, audit your signal, heart rate, clarity, tone, micro choices. If amplitude rose, you schedule it weekly. If amplitude fell, you widen the ring's distance without apology. Friendship can thrive at multiple radii, your frequency cannot. Finally, you confront the most subversive entanglement, the version of you that your old rooms still expect. You have been carrying that ghost to keep others comfortable. You will grieve it. You will also graduate it. Hand to heart, one exhale, then a sentence signed like a contract. I release the self that kept me welcome at tables that dimmed my signal. You do not hate those tables. You walk past them with open palms because you have built a new room, and the door is unlocked for anyone willing to tune. The lattice shifts, not with thunder, but with a quieter weather. Fewer apologies in your mouth, more exactness in your step, invitations that fit without translation, and a calendar that feels like a metronome you chose rather than a siren you obey. The field is answering. It always did. Now it answers you. You have engineered coherence, disciplined phase, rewritten priors, and architected your field. Now the terrain changes. Linear progress gives way to nonlinear jumps. Those sudden reorganizations where the same life rearranges around a new order parameter and refuses to return to its former symmetry. Physics calls it a phase transition. Psychology calls it a breakthrough. Destiny calls it remembering. Your days have circled a set of attractors basins in the landscape of possibility toward which your state rolls with minimal effort. Stress has an attractor. Scarcity has one. Clarity does too. When you alter the microparameters long enough, the landscape itself reshapes, and what once felt uphill becomes slope. This is the moment most people sabotage, because the nervous system mistakes unfamiliar ease for danger. You will not. First, you must recognize the signature of a bifurcation. Small inputs provoke larger than ordinary outputs. Coincidences cluster with statistical disrespect. Old temptations arrive like museum pieces, recognizable but behind glass. Conversations you used to force now flow until you feel almost fraudulent for how little you pushed. This is not the universe rewarding you. It is sensitivity increasing near the edge of a state change. Measurements have more leverage here. So does noise, which is why you move slower, not faster. You stand at the fork with three instruments: order parameter, control parameter, and threshold. Order parameter, the single quality that best describes the emergent you choose. 1. Precision, sufficiency, serenity, candor. Control parameter, the behavior under your command that most reliably raises coherence, breath, cadence, posture, word economy, sleep discipline. Threshold, the minimum daily dose that keeps you on the ridge. 15 minutes of resonance breath, 90 seconds of panoramic vision, 1 honest boundary scent, 3 lines of model release. You write them on a card. You don't negotiate with the card. The card is the cliff rope. Now the mathematics of choice. In nonlinear systems, local decisions create global reorganizations. You are not choosing a better mood. You are choosing which attractor will own your future. The fork is not a single grand scene. It is a sequence of small, precise measurements that collapse the wave toward a timeline. When the email arrives that would drag you into your prior identity, you pass it through a 2-question lens. Does this preserve my order parameter? Does this match my fieldcraft? If either answer is no, the price is not one errand, the price is gravitational. Your state rolls downhill into the old basin. You pay in weeks, sometimes months. You do not dramatize this. You model it. You visualize 2 paths as literal waveguides on the floor. The left is friction dressed as familiarity. The right is unfamiliar clarity. You take 1 step physically onto the right. You feel texture, temperature, weight transfer. The body is the deciding court. It must feel the verdict. To stabilize the jump, you employ hysteresis, the property that keeps a system in its new state, even as conditions wobble. You create more margin than you think you need. Extra sleep on the first 3 nights after a major boundary. Fewer social variables in the first week of a new cadence. Simpler food during launch windows. You are not fragile. You are wise about the energy cost of birthing a higher attractor. Protecting a newborn frequency is not ego, it is stewardship. You introduce a clean ritual called edge work. 10 minutes, no more. Stand or sit. Hand to heart, eyes softened to panorama. Speak 1 sentence that names the jump in present tense. I live from sufficiency. Then choose 1 micro-act that would be impossible for your prior attractor and trivial for this one. Send the invoice with the clear price. Delete the app that leaks vigilance. Cancel the meeting that performs busyness. The act is the measurement that collapses probability. Probability respects those who measure. Then comes the turbulence. The system will test, not malevolence, homeostasis. The old basin throws you a gift wrapped as emergency. Urgent requests, seductive drama, a windfall that requires you to abandon your cadence to grab it. You slow your breath, widen your focus, and invoke a rule. Nothing urgent enters without meeting me at my frequency. If it withers under that requirement, it was never yours. If it strengthens, it belongs to the new attractor and will still be there after your walk. You enlist Entanglement to help. Invite one witness from your inner ring to hold a simple mirror. Did that choice serve the order parameter? No pep talks, just the mirror. Entanglement stabilizes states. You have been taught to suffer alone as virtue. Replace martyrdom with measured transparency. Now, a paradox that rescues many at the edge. Generosity is gain. In coherent systems, energy given at matched phase returns amplified. You contribute 1 unit of your craft without self-erasure. A precise answer, a tool, a sentence that clarifies a room, and let the field echo it back. You do not give to prove goodness, you give to prove abundance to your loop. Scarcity cannot survive being disproved by action. Finally, you sign the jump. Ritual matters because signatures make memory. Sunset or dawn, palm to heart, one cooling breath, then write this single line by hand. I no longer negotiate against my order parameter. Underneath, sign your name like a contract. Contracts are not romantic. They are anchors when weather changes. You wake the next day and discover a quiet miracle. The right people text first. The room meets you already half a beat forward. Tasks cluster by compatibility as if the calendar learned your cadence. The landscape has shifted. You did not outrun the old world. You changed the gravity. And gravity is patient, relentless, and kind to those who choose their attractor with clean edges. Time is not a river you are swept down. It is a medium that takes impressions from your state. You feel this when minutes bloat with dread and vanish under flow. What you call duration is the organism's estimate of change. Change accelerates or slows according to coherence. You stop speaking about not enough time. You start speaking about insufficient alignment per unit time. Begin with the stillness window. Every day already holds narrow gaps where prediction relaxes and sensory precision climbs. First light, just after a task that reached honest completion, immediately following breath-led coherence. These windows dilate subjective time because the brain stops spending cycles guessing threat and begins spending cycles receiving signal. You place your highest leverage act in a stillness window and you watch an hour behave like 3. This is not romance. It is economics reallocating computational budget from vigilance to creation. You build a ritual called the chronometer. 15 minutes, twice a day, same chair if possible, notebook open, 3 lines only. 1. What deserves long form today? 2. What is batchable noise? 3. What will collapse if left ambiguous? Long form receives uninterrupted block size to your cognitive ultradian rhythm, commonly 50-90 minutes. Batchable noise is corralled into 1 or 2 tight corrals, messages, logistics, micro-approvals, so context switches stop shredding coherence. Ambiguities receive a binary, decide or calendar a decision. Time hemorrhages through ambiguity. The future cannot entrain around what you refuse to name. Then, you invert, delay, discounting. The default mind overvalues immediate relief and underprices long arcs. You flip the curve by pre-feeling the future state. Close your eyes and coat the next quarter with vivid, somatic detail, not trophies, but tone. Steadier mornings, emails that read like you, money that arrives from work that doesn't jam your signal. Flood the organism with the chemistry of that scene while you are about to choose between shallow dopamine and deep alignment. The limbic system partners with you when you let it taste the longer gain. You exploit temporal stacking. Tasks have hidden adjacency, writing pairs with strategy, outreach with admin, design with research. You group by state and refuse cocktails that require incompatible neurochemistry. Between stacks, you insert a 90-second reset. Stand, walk 5 slow paces, widen gaze to panorama, 2 long exhales, 1 sip of water. Those 90 seconds reclaim 10 minutes of clarity you would have bled arguing with your attention. You draft a policy for interruptions, not moralism physics. Every restart costs a re-entry fee measured in glucose and neurotransmitter choreography. You post 1 sentence where others can see it. I answer in windows. Outside windows, I am unavailable. Then you enforce it with kindness and steel. You are not special for being unreachable. You are faithful to the wave you serve. Responsiveness is not love. Accuracy is. Now you mine the Zeigarnik effect, the mind's tendency to loop open tasks. Instead of drowning in loops, you harvest their energy. Each open task receives one of 3 closures: do, if, under 2 minutes, date, calendar with verb and time, or delete, remove with ceremony. You write a literal strike through and exhale. The organism relaxes when it trusts that loops end somewhere specific. Relaxed organisms perceive more time because fewer cycles are burned on covert rehearsal. You install lead indicators. Lag indicators tell you what has already cooled into history: money landed, videos published, weight moved. Lead indicators are behaviors that force the lag to appear. 90 minutes of deep work before noon, 1 unambiguous boundary spoken daily, 2 paragraphs shipped, 1 conversation hosted at your frequency. You measure leads because they are the only clocks you truly control. Time respects those who steward leads. Sleep becomes sacred technology. You stop treating nights as negotiable and adopt an athlete's arrogance about recovery. Same anchor wake time, light in your eyes within 20 minutes, caffeine delayed until cortisol settles, last light warm and low. Deep sleep extends coherence length into tomorrow. REM rehearses futures in a safe theater. You are not weak for guarding this. You are building a time machine with your pillow. Speed is redefined. Incoherent speed is smear motion that produces rework and apology. Coherent speed is glide, clean entries and exits, sentences that land without cleanup, deliverables that do not require your future to become a janitor. You shave 15% off pace and discover decisions sharpen, meetings shorten, errors fall. The world calls you calm. You are simply phase, accurate. You implement chrono-bridges between identities, work relationship, maker-manager, public-private. 3-minute crossings prevent state bleed. Close your laptop, step outside. Name 3 colors in the distance. Exhale longer than you inhale. Touch the doorframe with intention, as if crossing a threshold in a temple. You do not carry one frequency into a room that requires another and ask time to forgive you. You give each room its rightful metronome. Finally, you sign a covenant with your future. I will not steal from you with dramatized urgency or ornamental busyness. You write it on the inside cover of your notebook. When the day swells with demands, you reread the sentence and return to your stillness window, your stacks, your leads. The calendar becomes less a cage and more a score. You are the conductor now, not the symbol. And then you notice the old miracle with new eyes. The hours no longer bruise you, they carry you. The day does not evaporate, it opens. Appointments arrive on your rhythm. Coincidences keep reasonable office hours. And when night comes, it feels earned, not escaped. You did not stretch time. You stopped leaking it. You have tuned frequency, disciplined phase, rewritten priors, architected field, crossed thresholds in time. Now you ask the only question that matters to a universe that listens. How, exactly, does it land? Materialization is not a mood. It is a measurement ritual repeated until probability capitulates. You do not beg outcomes. You specify boundary conditions with such precision that the world runs out of excuses. Begin with the triad money, love, and craft, not because they are trophies, but because they are the 3 mediums through which your signal proves itself. Each domain receives a single observable metric that your body can influence daily without permission from the gatekeepers. Money, number of offers made, not feelings about worth. Love, number of warm, clear bids for connection, not fantasies about deserving. Craft, number of shipped units of real work, not drafts held hostage by perfection. You call these handles because you can grip them even when weather changes. You assign each handle a cadence window, daily for microacts, weekly for consolidations, monthly for review. You refuse the temptation to measure too much. Noise masquerades as sophistication. The field respects sparse, strong signals. You write the handles where your eyes meet them. 1 card on your desk, 1 tile on your phone's first screen, 1 line at the top of your notebook. You are not decorating, you are aligning receptors. Now you fold in error budgets. Perfection is brittle and breaks under real wind. Antifragility allows bounded deviation so the system learns without shattering. You permit yourself 2 misses per week per handle, misses recorded without confession, only cause and correction. If you exceed the budget, you do not self-attack. You scale the demand down 1 click and rebuild streak integrity. Streaks are not vanity. They are phase memory encoded in behavior. Language becomes a metrology tool. Each day, before your handles, you speak a 2-sentence spec in present tense verbs. I engage precisely. I deliver cleanly. Then you write 1 sentence that names the order parameter, sufficiency, serenity, candor, precision, and you circle it. That circle is the audit lens. Every act must pass through it. If a prospective project or conversation would require you to violate the circle, it is too expensive, even if it pays. You are done financing outcomes with signal debt. You bring in the physics again. Measurement collapses ambiguity into event, but the instrument matters. Biased instruments invent miracles and disasters that never happened. So you pick instruments that cannot be flattered. Shipped links, calendar screenshots, bank statements, pulse logs, HRV curves, sent emails, delivered boundaries. Feelings are beautiful. Instruments decide. Then you design the approach vector called the 3x1. 3 silent cycles of rehearsal, 1 loud cycle of broadcast. Silent cycles are inner calibration, breath, posture, present tense spec, handle chosen. Loud cycle is the act, the send, the speak, the ship, the step. You repeat 3 times, 1 across the day like a heartbeat. Coherence rises because action lands before rumination recruits an army. Friction will attempt a counter-revolution. It will arrive wearing the face of deserving. When I am more healed, then I will. You stop bargaining with futures. You move 1 atom now. A single offer, a single sentence, a single paragraph sent at the frequency you chose. The body needs proof more than poetry. The universe needs a surface to grip. Give both. You formalize a weekly, collapse and compare. 30 minutes, same chair. 2 columns, what I measured, what collapsed. You list handles achieved, then the actual precipitations calls returned, rooms that opened, conversations that ended cleanly, unexpected money, invitations that matched your cadence. You train your loop to see causality without superstition. When the line between handle and collapse grows reliable, identity updates, and identity is the most powerful broadcast on Earth. You normalize ethics as signal hygiene. You do not manipulate, you specify. You do not coerce, you clarify edges until misfit cannot hide. Coherence that harms is counterfeit, loud but off-phase, expensive to maintain, bankrupt in the long run. You audit your gains. Did any require you to dim someone else? If yes, you return the gain and keep the dignity. The field remembers what you take. It multiplies what you steward. Now you add the amplifier called precision generosity, contribution that costs you little amplitude and yields others significant clarity. 1 exact paragraph shared, 1 tool given, 1 introduction made. Not performance, precision. In coherent networks, generosity increases gain. The lattice echoes your frequency back with interest. Finally, the seal. You stand, hand to heart, soft panorama, a single cool exhale. You speak 1 closing line that makes matter's job easy. I make reality legible. And then you place 1 object, the artifact of the day's broadcast where future, you will trip on it. The sent invoice's confirmation number printed and clipped, the published link already scheduled, the meeting note titled with a verb. Artifacts are anchors. Anchors survive weather. Materialization does not thunder when it arrives. It clicks. The click of a door that opens without your shoulder. The click of a sentence that needs no defense. The click of a payment that lands as if it had been looking for you. You do not chase the click. You build the jig that makes the click inevitable. Probability loves engineers. It marries those who keep their measurements clean. You stand at the edge without fanfare. A precise organism carrying a clean broadcast. And the room feels like a taut string waiting for your fingertip. You do not plead with the future. You open the circuit and let the present complete it. The body knows the choreography. Now palm to heart. Exhale longer than inhale. Spine like a mast remembering the wind it was built to read. You are not reciting a ritual. You are issuing a specification. Coherence before conditions, phase before force. Rhythm edits narrative, behavior seals broadcast. Each line lands like a rivet in steel, and the structure takes weight without groan. You test your edges with a single sentence, quiet enough that only reality needs to hear it. I will not trade my order parameter for applause. Silence answers as if it were a voice. That is how you know the field has learned your name. The mathematics are simple and merciful. What you repeatedly measure becomes furniture. What you honor with clean behavior becomes gravity. The handles are in place, offers made, bids for connection, units shipped, and your loop has stopped confusing vigilance for virtue. You feel the click more often now. Emails that meet you at your cadence, rooms that steady when you enter, coincidences so obedient they feel like scheduling rather than luck. It would be easy to call this magic. It is simpler than magic. It is physics with its hair let down. You visit the old basins one last time, not to negotiate, but to graduate them. Versions of you who survived with blunt tools look up from their posts, and you do not shame them. You thank them for their shift and release them from night duty. Scarcity once guarded your aorta. It can guard discernment now. People, pleasing once purchased entry. It can polish hospitality now. Every fragment returns as skill, no piece wasted. The organism a choir that finally sings the same song at the same tempo. You appoint generosity as your amplifier, not to perform goodness, but to declare abundance. One exact paragraph shared, one introduction offered, one tool placed where someone else can use it. The lattice brightens, gain rises. You feel how entanglement turns from contagion to communion when frequency is clean. Time softens its brow, the stillness windows widen, the day stops bruising and begins bearing you like a river that learned your weight. Sleep becomes sacred technology, and dawn becomes treaty. You enter each room through a chrono-bridge of breath and light, a small rite that says, "This space deserves the right metronome, and I have brought it." Now you sign, not with ink alone, but with posture, cadence, and act. You write a single line on paper you can touch. I make reality legible. Beneath it, your name, dated in a hand that doesn't tremble anymore. You pin the card where your eyes will meet it without ceremony. You do not wait for thunder. You begin the smallest next broadcast at full purity. One email, one sentence, one placement of water on a desk, and you let the world find you by the clarity of your edges. Because prophecy, when fulfilled, is not spectacle. It is recognition. You do not become someone else. You become exact. And the field, relieved at last, rushes to meet what you have always been broadcasting. Walk, the lattice is listening. Measure, probability will capitulate. Speak, matter will obey. The signal stands, and you stand inside it.